William then gets a notice that he has a special class to take. Of course, every so often he gets a little perturbed because the dogs of her world seem to always be an annoyance, but he seems to handle quite well. In any case, he, while being on the terrace, lets Daenerys know, I guess there's a special course I gotta take, but I'll be right back. That is fine, William. I think I have to go discuss some things that only a woman can talk about with another, with my handmaiden. That is fine. I shall return. I'm not sure what it is, but I'm sure it shouldn't take too long. Alright then. I will see you in a little while, William. So with that, she goes off to talk to Missandei while William heads off to class. At the meeting room, she goes out on the balcony and with the doors open, just kind of takes in the sights, thinking about some things. As she stands there, she contemplates things that William eventually, she knows, is going to be discovering or have questions about, such as her past, because she hasn't really given him the full disclosure of her past. Missandei comes in, seeing her standing out there. Daenerys, yes. Are you alright? Yes, I was just doing some thinking. Because there's many things that William still has yet to learn about me, and the things that I have done, the things that I hope to accomplish, and things that I've look forward to. Have you talked to him yet about giving him all of your heart? She kind of turns around with a somewhat smile. Not yet. Do you know when you might want to talk to him about this? Soon, Missandei. I will soon discuss this with him. Well, he'll probably have many questions if he hasn't already about you. I mean, he doesn't really know, other than what you've told him already about past history and family, does he? No, but you're right. I probably should have told him this before we got married, but I didn't want to put it all on him at once. Well, that is fine. So she goes out and talks to him, and she seems to have a bigger smile. Is there something else that perhaps maybe, well, you seem like you're in a pretty good mood. Yes, I would never understand why a human would risk his life for me. He went into the dragon pit and released the dragons on his own, but he was singing and whistling. Whistling. Yeah, I don't know how to make it out. It's like singing but no words. It's a strange sound, like, I don't know, maybe like a bird. Missandei could think of it. Well, that's certainly different. So they go back inside. I've never heard such a sound before. I don't recall if I've ever heard a man do this whistling. So as they're inside, and she raised them, but I know that there's going to come up a time, not that it should be a burden, but he's going to want to probably know about also the time I had with Jon Snow. It's going to come up, even though it was kept from the history books, because of the sensitive politics. Would you care to sit down for a moment? So she does. You know, the last time Missandei's clearing her throat. That we sat here like this, I think was long ago when you told me how Grey Worm had caught you bathing in the river, the stream. Yes, it does bring back memories. In any case, I think at least I'm hopeful that William's not going to hold this against me, but then again, he's not of our world, and his customs are not like ours. I've accepted his strange ways. I'm sure ours is just about as strange to him. Yes, I would imagine so. She then takes her seat. Do you think that William is, well, do you think William's going to survive? How do you mean? Well, he's not of our world, and though he has gone through the Veil Passing. How's he gonna, well, she kind of looks down. I would imagine he would survive. He's supposed to give me, deliver that which I've been longing for, the rightful claim to the Iron Throne. Well, I think he will deliver this to you. Perhaps you're just nervous because of things he doesn't know about you yet. Yes, you are probably right. And just think of the things that you get to look forward to when he's finally got all his lessons done. She kind of looks up with a smile. Yes, it has been a while, and I've yet to tell him that I'm with child. I've been thinking about perhaps, maybe, I should tell him about another child that for a while when I had been gone until the Fire and Blood Society brought me back. Oh, you mean Daenerys? Yes. Well, that might be a good idea. Perhaps see what he thinks. Tyrion wants me to visit Jon Snow and I's daughter. It's been so long. I don't even remember how much time had passed since the time I had been gone until Fire and Blood Society brought me back. But she's getting curious. And from what Tyrion told me, it has somewhat the same moods that I have. And perhaps I need to talk to her as well. So are you going to introduce William to her? Yes, I think I will. I don't expect her to accept him like a father figure. And I know I have to be careful not to be noticed because otherwise it'll look like I've gone back on an agreement when I only held the throne for 3 days before William got here. Well, I suppose, if you want, I could come with you, and perhaps she'll remember me as well. Yes, I think she will. Well, this should be a good short trip then. And with a smile again, yes, I think a break away from the palace would be good for William and for me. So with that, they contemplate their trip to see Daenerys, who is the one and only daughter of Jon Snow and Daenerys Stormborn of the House of Targaryen. Once in the classroom, William took a seat. Oh, yes, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt your break. The Lord Instructor looks towards William's direction. Oh, that's okay. You said it was urgent. Yes, actually. You're near the end of your political lessons, but I think it's time you should know some things. And I'm sure if it wasn't me, the Queen Daenerys is going to tell you about this anyway. I hand you this document. And William looks at it, and it seems to be a document that shows briefly some of the main houses. In this world, we had some people who seem to always have disputes over something you may have heard. If not, they call it an iron throne of swords. He even came up with a slogan that you either win or you die. They called it a Game of Thrones. A game. So I don't get it. Why would you have a game of something that you're supposed to sit on? And I'm presuming this thing still won't cut you in the bottom. No. Well, because it says sword, so I'm thinking like, what, they got the sharp edges upward and you're supposed to sit on it, or the points? No, William. Although that does sound a bit funny, but from your human understanding, you probably have not seen this thing yet. No, I don't think I have. Well, I take that back. I remember King Johnston, who I met when I was in King's Landing, taking classes, was sitting on something, but I didn't really get a good look at it. Well, that was the Throne of Swords for the realm of the kingdom. Oh, okay. Well, in any case, I don't want to take up too much time because I did interrupt your break, and we'll take another short break so that way at least you have a fair enough break time before the conclusion of your political lessons. I want you to look at the House of Stark. What do you see here? Well, it looks like most family members, except for two. I would imagine one's I believe it's called Maester. Good. But there's one that's not a Stark. In fact, it looks like there's two of them. One must be from, I believe, the House of Greyjoy. Good. And then there's this one, Jon Snow. Yes. The eldest of the Starks was a Robb Stark. He was the first king of the North when Ned Stark had been betrayed. There was a famous battle when the Lannisters were fighting the Starks, and they called it, after they had developed a flag to demonstrate this, the Twins Battle. They were greatly outnumbered by the Lannisters, but they had the battle up by what is called the Twins. Long story short, the marriage of the King of the North to one who he had favored, though there was a treaty about him marrying one of the House of Frey, didn't turn out too well, and they called it the Red Wedding. Why would it be red? Well, because him and most of the family that were attending such a reception of another who got married got slaughtered. I see. But now, let's look at Jon Snow. Many people have been confused. They thought that Ned Stark was the father to Jon Snow during a time of war, and when he had a type of an affair with a Targaryen lady. This is far from the truth. He had a sister who Robert Baratheon had been much in love with. Her name was Lyanna Stark. But there was another Targaryen long ago. His name was Rhaegar Targaryen. Very, well, I'm a man, so I wouldn't think so myself, but I guess to the women he was quite attractive. In any case, it started a quite offensive ordeal because in what we might consider disrespect, he had swooned Lyanna Stark, who was supposed to be with Robert Baratheon, and kind of like stole her away. After some time, they had a child, but she had been injured due to some treachery or one form or another, and so Ned Stark went looking for his sister. Guards tried to stop him, and he had some men with him. The last one standing was Ned and this other one, but one of the injured men actually saved his life before he finally fell from his injuries. And he took this child, who is best known as Jon Snow Targaryen, but his real name wasn't revealed to him until many, many years later. His wife, Catelyn, thought that Ned had some kind of affair and hated Jon for the longest time, but come to accept him, and so he lived with the Starks for the longest time. However, he isn't pureblood Targaryen. He had served for some time at the Black Watch, and eventually he became Lord Commander of the Black Watch. Daenerys and him finally met during the Great Wars of the White Walkers, and she, though she be his aunt and Jon Snow, fell in love with each other, and they had a child. And the child, of course, after the White Walker Wars, pretty much was with her mother, Daenerys, for the longest time. And so this was after the White Walker Wars. Now, at this map here, we have the northern houses. Another house, though not as big, was the House Arryn, and they were relations to the Starks. The mother, of course, had met her own demise when she tried to do something treacherous to Sansa Stark. Again, if you refer to the northern houses, there is also the Lannisters. The Lannisters were from Tywin Lannister. He had 2 sons and a daughter. When the third son was born, the mother had died, and for the longest time he hated this youngest short one, young son of his, blaming him for the death of the mother. This wouldn't happen to be Tyrion by any chance. As a matter of fact, it is. So he continues on. In any case, these are all those who serve under the House Lannister. William finds this quite impressive, and it's quite large. Again, referring back to the northern houses, we also have the House of Baratheon. Now, one of them is not quite listed, though he was a brother to Renny Baratheon, who is also the immediate younger brother to Robert Baratheon. Because there is also another brother, which you'll learn about later. And so in this house, they had many who served them as well. Okay. Again, at the northern houses, we have the children of Robert Baratheon and formerly Queen Cersei Baratheon. The children that were supposed to be born of them, although it is sometimes thought of that actually her and her brother were secretly sharing feelings for each other, and this is where the children came from. But for the sake of protecting the family name, it was made out to look like the daughter and 2 sons were born of Cersei and Robert. The daughter had been sent off to Dorne for her own protection, as well as to gain insight in becoming a proper lady for the House Lannisters. She did meet a young prince, but unfortunately he was assassinated and is since then deceased. Because there is also bad blood between the Lannisters and Dorne, for something that happened to another one's a brother prince to the one who ruled Dorne, sister. Another lady who is now ruler took it upon herself for exacting revenge, and she was the wife to this one whose sister had gotten killed. So a special poison to which she had kissed the daughter on the lips, a slow-acting poison, had killed her. And it was a sad moment for both Jaime Lannister, who's best known as Kingslayer, and Cersei. But these are those few who serve the House Martell Kingdom of Dorne, also known as Sunspear. In any case, Tristan Martell was to marry the daughter of the Lannisters, but it would never take place. Back at Northern Houses, there was also the second child, thought of as Robert and Cersei's son, for protecting the name, because it actually probably was most likely the son of the Kingslayer and Cersei's. Unfortunately, he didn't turn out to be a very good young ruler. He betrayed Ned Stark and had Ned Stark's head taken. Fortunately for Queen Margie, she was spared the torturous ways that this Joffrey was like. So then she married the younger brother, Tommen. Now, Cersei eventually became hungry for the power and took upon herself to have the throne after blowing up the Faith of the Seven Temple. This caused Tommen to think that his wife, Queen Margie, had died, so he committed suicide. But it wasn't until a few years afterwards, long after the White Walker Wars, that King Johnston's wife, Queen Miri, had discovered and rescued Queen Margie, and she happened to be with child. I would imagine the child is born by now. So in review, there is quite the study of the kingdom's politics, and some of it I would imagine is going to be much for you to take in. But in time, you will get a grasp for it. In time, you'll learn of the great bastards of our kingdom's history. They all had important roles to play as time went by in the history of the 7 known kingdoms. Again, in the northern houses, we had other places that, like the Targaryen kingdom, which is quite large, much like that of the Starks. And again, if you remember, that Daenerys had married her nephew, and thus one known as Daenerys Targaryen had been born of this pre-consummated of their relations. Pre-consummation, and does not mean before marriage. Yes, but I thought a marriage had to be consummated after you're married. It was. Two things were done wrong. First, Daenerys doesn't support sorcery, wizards, warlocks, anything that deals with magic since what happened by betrayal to her first husband, Drogo. The fact this one was successful in pulling one over on Daenerys by not coming forward and telling everything about Jon Snow being risen from the dead. She went ahead, and because of during the time of the White Walker Wars, had a pre-consummation. The marriage would take place afterwards, but then something tragic happened. I don't think I'm at liberty to say what at this time, but as more information becomes clear, I can share this with you. I understand. In any case, a first-time secret society, and you probably remember them since you may have, I've heard, had to do some things that they will document certain things, like walking the coals of fire. Right, I remember this. Well, they rescued her, brought her back. We use symbolism, of course, because symbolism means everything, and it means brought back from the abyss. But she had some injuries, and she was bandaged and taken care of, and others who remembered her, that served her, that weren't killed in the Battle of the White Walkers, finally came around and took care of her daughter while she was healing. You, of course, would not remember what she looked like beforehand, but as you see her now, this was the time from her being rescued by those appointed through the fire and blood society that had formed long, long ago. Once the bandages were removed, what you see her as now is the result of the healing. You don't see it very often, and it's not that clear, but she had a scar from her lower left cheek. It was the last remains of what had happened since that long ago war. I understand. So, in any case, then he goes and gets some other maps. Okay, where were we? Okay, as I said, she had been rescued, and after much healing, she didn't look the same after the Great White Walker Wars. Her hair is a little bit brighter, and she has, well, she did have a distinctive scar on her left cheek. But in time, it did heal, and so it's barely noticeable now. Unlike before, she got trained to use weapons. So now she is kind of, well, not one you'd still want to cross paths with. I mean, granted, she may not be the perfect swordsman, but she does know how to take care of herself. In the meantime, referring to this map here, and it shows how the path was taken to do such a rescue, because at the time, most people, like commoners or peasants, were used to the idea that there would be no more wars or battles over this Iron Throne of Swords for the realm of the kingdoms, because the palace that held the throne room was pretty well damaged. And so it was pretty much an era of, well, the seven known kingdoms just ruling themselves. Nobody seemed to have an interest thereabouts in trying to make such a claim, because nobody stepped forward. It was quite the controversy that nobody really wanted to try to challenge this idea. So they pretty much stuck themselves for a time. But some things kind of got developed that many people were having unruly grievances, and things were taking place that had not taken place before when such such claims were made at the time. So a faction finally started, and they decided that it was time to have what would be called a type of society, ones who like to remain secret. Oh, I know, they call this a secret society in my world. Yeah, something like that. So in any case, it had to be started up in again, symbolism being everything, on a basis that was formed in secret. And so this was done, and they were called the Fire and Blood Secret Society. Once formed, they had chosen their leaders, lords, and certain priest lords that would run the meetings in secret. And one of the topics that came up most unexpectedly is, what if Daenerys was to be returned? Most people would think of this as some form of sorcery or type of craft, because it was not something that anybody would have thought of, because, well, Jon Snow was risen from the dead. And so nobody really wanted to entertain such a notion, because of fear that it could start something that would cause wars to happen again. So many people just really didn't care to get this going again. But others had debated that when she was in role and such a claim on the throne was done, that such crimes that became commonplace later, such as rape, murder, things like that, didn't happen very often. So they had to choose some specific ones to go do this rescue mission. One was called the Ritual Lord. He would have to perform the ritual once she had been found. And then, of course, there was the Guardian selected. The Guardian much looked like his father, because he is also Targaryen from long, long ago. They call him a father because they almost look identical, but it was from the family line. Perhaps you may have seen him. He is now known as the Trusted Advisor. That's why he looks almost identical. Yes, I guess you could say it runs in the family. Well, I guess there's nothing wrong with that. No. So the mission was to avoid detection while doing the rescue of Daenerys Targaryen. And as you see on the map here, they came from Essos. And they did quite a good job avoiding detection. They even found a way to get around the wall, which at that time was undergoing repair since the time of the White Walker Wars. They made their way, though a rough way to do it, through the mountains, and once beyond the wall, they found her. Now, it's unclear whether she was deceased or, again, she was already alive with the newborn of her and Jon Snow. Again, as the history becomes more clear, I can make this available to you. But for right now, we're just going to move on with what we have. I understand. So we're going to say that for right now, that the ritual lord somehow ended up getting killed. They thought of it as a good sacrifice for Daenerys' return from a symbolical abyss. And again, healing and bandaging of Daenerys was done at an inn once they had retraced their steps back beyond the wall. Her appearance, of course, was different, much like you see her now, again with a slight scar to the left cheek. But they had to cover their tracks, not that anyone was following them, but because if anyone was to know that she was back in the world, alive, it could cause many problems. And right now, she was in a very vulnerable state, so they had to find a way to protect her. So they prefabricated a story of how Jon Snow was still alive and was due to marry her in King's Landing, and sent this message throughout. This way, people would, if they were seeking to find out if his rumors are true that she had been spotted alive, with those who traveled in red robes, that they would be more or less following a loose end that was only prefabricated. Oh, I think in my world they call it sending them on a wild goose chase. Not that you're chasing actual geese, but it's to send somebody off the trail of what you're really up to. Yes, something like that for your human understanding. It's a good analogy. So, Daenerys then first was taken to Dragonstone. There, her bandages did come off eventually, and those who survived the White Walker Wars kind of rallied together, and those who did serve her well met her at Dragonstone. She then went to King's Landing and secured the throne for her daughter, the heir, Daenerys Targaryen. By that time, of course, somebody had already started the repair of the throne room to patch the holes in the ceiling and the walls. However, because the prefabricated story was made, certain distant cousins of about 2 or 3 houses thought that this prefabricated story was for real. There was a major invasion with 3 that were from beyond the known 7 kingdoms. Now, they continued the prefabricated story to save their face from looking, how would you say, humiliated from following a story that wasn't quite true. The only thing that was true is that Daenerys was forced to be disowned. That is, they made Daenerys disown her. And then she was stripped of land and titles. Well, why was that done? Well, because, again, Jon Snow was risen from the dead by a woman in red who worshipped a fire god. And that was considered bad enough. The next thing was the fact that Daenerys was going to, although it wasn't quite true, marry one of who has risen from the dead. Little did they know that this took place long before she had been in the abyss, but still, it was considered something that you just don't do. Then there was the fact that she was remembered for bringing Dothraki, who if she should have remembered, although she probably didn't since she'd been brought from the abyss, that her very first husband, Khal Drogo, said that he would rape the women and young girls. And it was something that she had no control over anyway, because Dothraki are savages. And so with that understanding, it was something that should have never happened at the time of the White Walker Wars that were yet to take place. So in that case, that was another reason that the heir was forbidden to have a claim to the throne. And then, of course, the fact that though it was supposed to have been done after marriage, it was a pre-consummated marriage. There's another strike against her. And the fact that Daenerys was born from one risen from the dead. So many factors had a key reason to have Daenerys disown, and any claims that Daenerys would have claim to the Iron Throne was stripped from her. So therefore, it was decided then that either they could terminate Daenerys' life because she was considered an abomination born into the world that should have never been born, or that she should be taken from the kingdom to live out the rest of her days. This is where Tyrion Lannister took it upon himself to try to raise her as much as he could. Missandei at the time, who pretty much thought that Daenerys had been killed, had spent time with Tyrion, but nothing developed from that. And once Daenerys, of course, now being alive, rejoined, along with everybody else who rallied together, Daenerys. So any relations between Tyrion and Missandei was short-lived. Tyrion eventually found new love with one found in the King's Landing, and they got married. So, to save face for Daenerys now, because there's nothing they could do with her being back, they agreed to withhold this from the history under the terms that Daenerys never again attempts to regain custody of Daenerys or install her as an heir to the Iron Throne of Swords, and that she herself should never try to lay claim to the Iron Throne of Swords. She agreed to this reluctantly, and thus she began her trip long ago before you came to this world, William, known as the Trip of Tears back to Meereen, which is in the continent of Essos. And there, of course, she resumed her duties as queen up to the time, and thereafter you came into our world. Wow, that's wow. I know it's a bit much to take in. Yes, it's wow. I can almost see where there's an important connection to me. So that is how things went. Now, of course, the visionary, who was hardly then ever seen by Daenerys before, played an important role because that is where he had brought to her attention that had she waited a little bit longer, she could have had the Iron Throne of Swords. And it was because, like her brother, though she did it subtly, had a hunger for the power, having the Iron Throne of Swords. And she come to realize this, and with much words of wisdom, understood that to admit one's mistakes makes you truly a great queen, and it's a mistake she would never do again. And so therefore, towards the end of the period for which she had been reinstated to the Pyramid Palace here, you came into the world. And of course we all know by that time that you're coming here most unexpectedly, for what you had told us was some one way in, no way back. Right, it was it was like a type of vortex or something. No way for me to get back to our world. It was what I refer to as the dark blue star that shines brightly in the iron night sky, my home world known as Earth. Well, Liam, your world being smaller than ours, we still find it amazing it has many kingdoms. Nevertheless, never in all Targaryen history has one from another world come into ours. Humans were near a myth legend and became much of conversation. You know, human this, human that, and human to do this, and human to do that. And so some people even thought that they were the humans, but that's not the case. So people are known by their houses. Yeah, well, I guess that would make sense because in my world we don't have anything called House of Human. He goes, I started right off, kind of amusing. Yeah, I would imagine that would be kind of strange. So yeah, we don't have anything called House of Human, but we did have our kingdoms, much like you do in your world. Well, we are now at the present time, and things are starting to rise. And there is a new leader, though it's been rumored that he's quite tall and quite brazen in strength, known as the Harpy King. And so, William, you are now here at the present time. Wow, okay. So this is the history that catches up with everything. Yes. And as you can see here, this would be the current genealogy section for the House of Targaryen. Yes, that's my man sign for being a human. The dark blue star shows I'm from another world. Right, and should we have children, I would imagine this is where their names would go. That is correct. So it is quite the unique and very intriguing history for the House of Targaryen. I can see that. Well, this is, wow, this is quite awesome. So, referring again back to the northern houses, the political map of the Lannisters, as you can see, is quite detailed. It has some that may or may not be recognized by shields, and some that aren't. However, there was also houses in the east, as you can see here, and it was quite large. Many various smaller houses. And then, of course, the main houses of the north, as we see here, were the ones that were in control for the longest time. The Iron Islands Kingdom, of course, is now back under the control of Yara Greyjoy, who is the first queen of the Iron Islands. And then, of course, there's the other smaller houses that have their allegiance one way or another to other houses. But for you, William, because you are a human, we don't want to confuse you too much with all of this. So your main focus is going to be on the timeline of the House of Targaryen. Alright? And so under the House of Targaryen, there is quite the history. Some of it's still not complete yet, but eventually, one day soon, I would imagine that Daenerys is going to have to add you somewhere. Because if she does become pregnant with a child, do you know how humiliating that would be for her to have a firstborn bastard of the House of Targaryen? That would bring such shame that it would be, well, it would just be unheard of. And even if you're not born in this world, at least if you are on the genealogical hall of records, this saves such humiliation and embarrassment to the family tree of the House of Targaryen. I understand. So in any case, that concludes the urgent lesson that historical records of the politics for which you are now in. Well, thank you, Lord Instructor, and I take it this is something that I will be graded on? No. This one here is something just for your own information. I understand. Well, thank you for the historical records of the politics. I guess I could always refer to these if I ever have questions then. Yes, you can. Well, in any case, William, thank you for responding to the urgent message that I needed to see you. You may go and finish your break, and then we will do the conclusion of the political lessons. Thank you, Lord Instructor. So with that, William then returns back to the terrace, and of course Daenerys is standing and then turns around and sees William. Was that a difficult lesson? No, it's catching me up to speed of how I come to be in this world since the time you were rescued. Oh, and so what did you think? Well, it was quite the information for me to take in, I must say. Um, but but he said I could refer to it anytime I had questions. And that is good. So she has William then sit down with her. Um, I wanted to talk to you about something, William. Yes, Daenerys. A long time ago, because of my first husband, Drogo, I said I could not promise you all my heart. But because of the things you have done thus far in freeing the dragons and risking your life, and yet to risk it still for me, I've decided that he'll always have to place my heart and to give the rest of my heart to you. Oh, well, thank you, Daenerys. I don't know what to say, except thank you. Um, you'll always have all of mine. I'm sure I will, William. And so with that, he puts his arm gently around her neck, and she kind of looks at his arm and then back at him with a raised eyebrow. What are you doing? You mean I'm not allowed to kiss the world's most beautiful woman and ruling queen? Um, William. Yes, you are, but, well, I guess since we have done this on the terrace before, I shouldn't have too much to worry about. They both seem to look real quickly, and then they kiss for the longest time. As the break drew to a close, Khaleesi had to return to her duties as William had to return to his political lessons. They take each other arm in arm, holding each other tight, caressing each other's back as they're kissing, and William then gives her gentle kisses on her neck, which again causes some stimulation and feeling stirring in her. I will have to go, this is causing a little bit too much of a distraction for me, as I'm already going through difficult times till the ritual is done, but we can pick this up later. Well, I look forward to this. And again, you look very beautiful, and I enjoy every moment with you, as do I. You are very sweet, and I love every moment of you, the way you touch me and hold me, and I love the feel of you as well, Khaleesi. You give me sensations that no human female would ever give me. I love the way you speak to me, and I love the way you talk to me as well. Your voice is so beautiful, like that of a cool breeze and that of a angelic tone. You always give me peace when I hear you speak, because I cannot get enough of your soft words and kindness. So with that, she gives William a very big grin. They kiss each other again for a long time, and then they separate to their various responsibilities. William then re-enters into the classroom. All right, take your seat, William. I'm going to name off the name of the shield or emblems that you see. You have to name the ruler, the great house, the capital, the date of formation, and who it is preceded by. Understand? Yes, I am ready. Good. On the first one, some shields may be shown, others may just be a map because no shield or emblem had been formed. There are also former shields that are no longer used. I see that. Okay, so let us begin. First one is Dorne. The ruler of this area is Ilaria Sand. The former was Prince of Dorne and Steward of Dorne, formerly.
then their great house would be of House Martell formerly and House Tyrell formerly. The capital is Sunspear, and the date of formation took place in 159 AL and 197 AL, preceded by Principality of Dorne on both counts. Correct. The next one is the Crown Lands. Wow, this is going to be lengthy. No, I'm sorry. Oh, I was just thinking to myself, this is going to be quite the lengthy one. Looks like it covers quite the area. That is correct. But name now the rulers, great house, capital, date of formation, and preceded by for this. All right. For the Crown Lands, the ruler is Queen of the Andals, the Rhoynar, and the First Men, all of the Crown Lands, excluding Driftmark and Dragonstone. House Lannister, de facto all of the Crown Lands, excluding Driftmark and Dragonstone. The capital is Red Keep, King's Landing. Date of formation 1 AL. Kingdom of the Isles and Rivers. Unknown is Driftmark and Dragonstone only. Unknown is Driftmark and Dragonstone only. The capital, of course, being Dragonstone. And was preceded by Kingdom of the Stormlands. Lord of Dragonstone, formerly, and Driftmark and Dragonstone only. The great houses included House Targaryen, formerly claimant of all the Crown Lands. House Baratheon of King's Landing, formerly all of the Crown Lands, excluding Driftmark and Dragonstone. House Baratheon of Dragstone, formerly Driftmark. And I think that's all that was available. It seems to have been left off and was never completed. Well, that is okay. You did good on that part. Okay, now, the next is the Reach. Okay. The ruler for the Reach is Lord Paramount of the Reach and Warden of the South, under the Great House of Tyrell. The capital is Highgarden. Date of formation 1 BAL, preceded by Kingdom of the Reach. Correct. The Riverlands. Ruler is Lord Paramount of the Riverlands. Great House is House Frey. House Tully was formerly the Great House. Capital is River Run, and formerly was the Twins. House Frey had date of formation of 2 BAL and currently now, or is currently BAL, and the former was 300 AL. Preceded by Kingdom of the Isles and Rivers, and prior to that, Kingdom of the North. Correct. Now, the next is the Stormlands. I guess it's unknown, but it was formerly under the ruler of Lord Paramount of the Stormlands. The Great House, I guess, is unknown, but formerly had been under the House Baratheon of Dragonstone and House Baratheon of Storm's End. The capital is Storm's End. Date of formation is, I think it's supposed to be 2 BAL, preceded by Kingdom of the Stormlands. Correct. The Westerlands. The ruler, Lord Paramount of the Westerlands, Warden of the West, of the Great House Lannister. Capital is Casterly Rock, but it is uncertain when it was formed, but it was sometime in BAL. Preceded by Kingdom of the Rock, and I believe before that, Kingdom of the North. That is correct. Okay, you're almost done. We got about 5 more to go. All right. The gift. It was the ruler of Lord Commander of the Night's Watch. None great house exists. The capital, Castle Rock. Date of formation was 1 AL. Prior to that, also formed at 300 AL. Okay, that's good. The next one, the Iron Islands. Ruler is Lord of the Iron Islands, of the Great House Greyjoy. The capital is Pike, and the date of formation is 2 BAL, but prior to that was also at 289 AL. And then I guess there is some additional information. Go ahead. It says Kingdom of the Isles and Rivers and Kingdom of the Iron Islands. And I believe that's some additional information regarding the Great House. Correct. The North. Under ruler, Lord Paramount of the North, Warden of the North, under House Bolton, which was also under House Stark formerly. The capital is Winterfell, formed, or date of formation 1 AL, but prior to that was 300 AL. So the additional information, of course, shows that currently the kingdom is of the North, but prior to that it was part of the Kingdom of the Iron Islands. That is correct. You're doing good. Okay, your final one. The Vale of Arryn. Well, let's see. Ruler is Lord Paramount of the Vale, Warden of the East, of the Great House Arryn. The capital is the Eyrie. Date of formation was 1 AL. But there's additional information that there was something formed at 300 AL known as the Kingdom of the Mountain and the Vale, which was under the Kingdom of the North. That is good. These, I know, must have been very difficult, but at least by knowing this much, you will know somewhat of their politics. This way you know what regions they have at present. Okay. Well, that was a bit challenging. All right, now I'm going to read here about the justice, and as we had done on a test before, you're going to come up with the paragraph to fill in its place. You ready? Yes. All right. For the justice. In the seven kingdoms, justice is administered by the king and or lords. Penalties for crimes may include scourging, mutilation, castration, excessive tickling, or imprisonment. South of the neck, where Andal culture is prevalent, punishments are carried out by headsmen, executioners, like the king's justice in the capital, or knights carrying out the will of their lords. In the north, however, where the ways of the first men are prevalent, it is expected for lords to carry out sentence personally. Now then, what do you know of treason and rebellion? Well, treason or rebellion may be punished in several ways, such as hanging or beheading, but also by exile or being stripped of lands and titles, which may also extend to the entire family of the one attainted. In the case of nobles, the taking of a close family member, such as a son or daughter, as hostage for the noble's good behavior is also commonplace. That is correct. All right. I'm going to read the next one, and you must fill in for 2. All right. I'm ready. Slavery or slave trading is also forbidden and punishable by death. Thieving and smuggling are usually punished by mutilation through amputating a hand, while rapists are subject to castration. Bearing arms against a liege lord or refusing to answer a liege lord's summons is also considered a capital offense. Now, you must fill in for the suspects and any criminal that are apprehended or subject to the justice system. You understand, William? Yes. Suspects of crimes are judged by lords or by the king himself. Parties may invoke a trial by combat to prove the justice of their positions. Both parties may fight themselves or name a champion to represent them. The victorious party is held to have been judged to be right by the seven. Any criminal, however, may join the Night's Watch to avoid punishment. Those who choose to take the black are beyond the reach of law, even a king's edict, as long as they swear the oath to serve the watch until death. The punishment for desertion, just as in the case of treason, is death. That is correct. All right, now we're finally coming to the end of the political lesson here. This now regards how the kingdoms and the realm of the kingdoms deals with economy and currency. Under the Targaryen dynasty, Westeros prospered. Gone were the petty wars of seven kingdoms and the endless thirst for minor glories that drove them. The Westerlands enriched the realm, the north guarded it, and the Reach and Riverlands fed it. This was written, of course, by Marjorie Tyrell. Oh, I know her. Yeah, you do. Yeah, well, she had given me some good advice back at the time when there was the gathering of the men, just as Daenerys was having her party with the ladies of the palace. And then she also happened to save my life when I had what is called the passing of the veil. Well, good. And what do you think of her? Well, I consider her a good friend. I mean, going to the House of Lannister always seems a bit tense. But like my best friend, Tyrion, I've kind of found favor with her. And I guess she's found favor with me. And so I consider her to be like, well, not to be disrespectful, but she's like a female best friend of mine. I respect her position as queen. And she seems to have a very sweet disposition. Um, she is very friendly, and I guess as long as one doesn't appear too hostile or menacing, that she's easily to make friends with. Well, that is good. I'm sure she would be well pleased if she heard you say these things. Well, what can you tell me then? I'm going to read the first part, and you're going to fill in for the second, about the overall economy and currency. I'm going to start. Monetary transactions in the Seven Kingdoms use a form of minted coin currency known as the gold dragon and its various denominations such as the silver stag and copper penny. What can you say then in following of this? Well, the feudal society of the Seven Kingdoms has a primarily agrarian economy. Surplus food supports the populations of the 5 major cities and the various large towns. The 5 major cities are in decreasing order of size: King's Landing, Old Town, Lannisport, Goldtown, and White Harbor. That is correct. You did well. These were obviously, like I said, difficult lessons for you on the politics. Perhaps even Queen Marjorie may be impressed. I believe that she could have at one point in time asked you if you had any knowledge of this. Now you can even show that you have a little more knowledge then. Well, I hope then I won't look too naive as she had foreseen me before, and perhaps even my queen and wife, Daenerys, will be pleased to know that I have a better understanding of, though I may still need help along the way at times, of the politics of this world. Yes, well, no one is expected to be 100% perfect, but at least it gives you the idea of how things work here in this world. So, I will make a report to Daenerys of your achievement for the completion of the political lessons. Well, thank you, Lord Instructor. I guess then the only lesson I have left now is the strategic lessons of warfare. Correct. We will take a break and you will come back and we will go ahead and cover that area shortly. All right, well, thank you very much. And so William gets up and is excused from the classroom. After having a break on the terrace by himself, as Khaleesi must have still been busy with other duties, he returns back to the class. There was only one document that the Lord Instructor handed him. Now, William, this is going to be kind of a brief introduction of strategic warfare. The map may be a little bit hard to see, but we had to try to fit everything into one document so you can see of what the certain points of strategies would be taken by many of the kingdoms of the realm. But what you will be seeing, which we do not have a copy of, as will be the actual strategy map. This, of course, is under the control and ruling of Daenerys in the meeting room. And since you were not ready to be a part of that yet, she will be giving you your final test when the time is right to see what you have learned. I understand. Now, if you look on the map closely, you'll see certain like little points on the map. Those are not cities. Those are like strategic points. Every kingdom has their own strategic points for any time that there is a war of how knights or forces are distributed. So this here then would show that for where we are at, which is not far from Marine, for the palace that you are in now, there would be certain areas that would be set up for defending the palace and the kingdom that surrounds it. You understand? Yes. So what you will do, and this will be considered something that you have to do on your own time, is meditate on what you are now looking at, and then you will be tested in the meeting room. There will be some high official knights that are selected to represent each of the commands that they hold when they meet with the queen in her meeting room. I know. This is almost similar to that of my world. Go ahead. Well, in the kingdom, which is actually not a kingdom, which we call the United States of America, on my world of Earth, a president of this kingdom, which, like I said, is called the United States of America, they were sometimes referred to like Joint Chiefs of Staff. They were like highest ranking generals, and they would meet with the president, who would be the ruler of that country or nation that I came from of my world. I would imagine then that these knights would be like somewhat like those generals. Am I correct? Well, yeah, we don't really kind of refer them to that way, but yes, that would be probably a close assumption for your human understanding. So they also will be witnessing to see what you come up with, since you are now, of course, being her husband king and following her right hand in her stead. When she puts you to the test, you are going, of course, to demonstrate to her what you have learned, and whatever you have learned and you decide from the map that she has, they, of course, it won't be a test. They will, of course, put this to exercise if you have passed your test well. All right. So this then should prepare you for what you need to do and to be ready for when that test comes. When we give her the report of your completing of your political lessons, we will also let her know that you have viewed the introduction of the strategic lesson warfare, so that way she knows that when the time is right, she will test you for this. I understand. Well, at this time, William, I don't know what else to tell you. I think that we have covered everything that needs to be covered. You have done very well, been very respectful, and have paid attention. And though, yes, you may have difficulties because you are human and probably need, not that you would forget anything you've learned, but help along the way. I'm sure that Daenerys or anybody who works for you or that you may have appointed or is appointed to you can help you along the way as need be. I understand. Well, congratulations. You did well. And I'm sure Daenerys will be delighted to hear that your lessons are formally complete. Again, when the um, eighth and final series chapter of the history of this world comes available, you will be summoned to complete that. But otherwise, this should not hold you back from anything that should be assigned you by our queen. Well, thank you, Lord Instructor. It was a great learning experience, and hopefully I do well in remembering all things, and I shall abide by the laws she enforces, as I have signed my signature to it, and continue to obey any command she gives me. Well, that is good. You are definitely showing much wisdom now. So with that, William and the Lord Instructor shake hands, and William feels proud that he has completed all these lessons, though they were very hard and difficult, because it is nothing like that of his world. So with that, then, he is excused to get prepared for doing some meditation on the strategic warfare for which he will be tested. In the meantime, the Lord Instructor then goes to the throne room where Khaleesi is attending to business. And after having completed some business with someone who had discussed things with her that are going on in her kingdom of the Pyramid Palace, he then is called forward by Khaleesi to approach. You have something to report? Yes, and actually with um, great delight that you might find well pleasing. Proceed. William has completed all lessons. And she had a big smile and kind of looked at the Lord Instructor with head slightly turned and eyebrows raised. This is certain? Yes, he has done quite well. He has been introduced to the strategic lessons of warfare. So when you feel it is right and time, you may test him to see what he has learned of all his lessons and what he can provide on your strategic map, which of course is for your eyes alone in your meeting room. I shall test him then and look forward to this. This will be a time of great celebration. When the time is right, I will have him join me for the first time in the meeting room and put him through the test. You have done well in instructing him. Thank you, my queen. Well then, thank you for your report. And so with that, she dismisses him, and thus William's lessons, with the exception of the series chapter 8 history lesson, is considered all complete, and nothing is to be hold him back at this time.